found the creepiest spot in this churchyard. It's pretty creepy, people. It's pretty creepy. You want to see how creepy it is? Look at those creepy branches swinging and flying. Look at these creepy vines trying to grab a hold of me. Oh, oh, they're trying to grab hold of me and take me into the creepy ground. Look at this creepy tombstone. How creepy is that, eh? That's proper creepy. I love a bit of creepy shit from time to time. I've got to tell you, I'm a bit of a fan. I like creepy shit. Right, look at this. Yeah, that's elaborate creepy shit. And back in the day, would have had all these railings sticking up with chains surrounding them. They like to surround the creepy shit with chains back in the day. And there's another bigger one over there. But you see, when we look at stuff like this, how these remnants have just given it up. Given it up, they did. Throughout the ages, people, everything is taken back into the earth. Everything gives it up in the end. And it won't be long before that's completely covered, and it'll eventually become a mound of soil and vegetation, won't it? Because this sandstone stuff is perfect for moss and stuff growing in it. Now I'm going to be leaning against this huge horse chestnut tree. It's the biggest horse chestnut I've ever seen. And with a girth like that, you would expect it to be as old as this churchyard. Now, incidentally, there was one grave which I saw from 1776, the year of the beginning of the War of American Independence from Britain. 1776. Wow. The Royal Navy sailing over with the Royal Marines on these old wooden galleons to try and cling on to that landmass we now call the United States of America. I do believe back in the day it was called New England. But Britain couldn't hang on to it any longer. It couldn't keep imposing the taxes on a nation which wanted to be independent. Why were they paying taxes to Britain? What was Britain doing for that country? Nothing. Nothing except extracting taxes. Well, Britain was responsible for creating that country originally. Oh, you could say it was Christopher Columbus. Anyway, I'm going to be speaking about Jesus and the metaphor of Jesus and the essence of Jesus, the word of Jesus. And if I was you, I'd listen. Even if you are not religious, you don't have to. I'm not religious. You think I'm religious? Why do you think I'm always speaking about Jesus? It's not because I believe he was God or the Son of God. No, because he was wise and he found something. And it seems that he was the first one recorded who spoke about what he found. Now the Buddhists, of course, they go back hundreds of years before Jesus. And they found something also, but They never called it the kingdom of God because they weren't religious. They called it the bliss. They called it Nirvana, which is the emptiness. And I do believe Nirvana means the snuffing out of the ego, of all what it is to be a human being. And then it's just the essence of what we are. And we can touch on that when we have bouts of samadhi. And I've had a couple of those. And when that happens, your ego just falls away. And then you're in this space. And you can still hear and you can still see, and you still see the gentle swaying of the trees, leaves and branches. You still see the clouds and feel the sun, but you see it without judgment. You see it as it is, without labels. And so here then I come back to Jesus. Judge not, yes, lest ye be judged. Now in my book I write a section on that. In my book I write many things. I write and ask, what is God? What is consciousness? What is God consciousness? What is the essence of Jesus? Many, many things. But most of you, you're not interested in that. You don't watch those videos where AI is speaking about facets of my book. If you did, you'd become pretty learned. You really would. Because every single subject that I'm asking AI to speak about is something that pertains to us all. And these subjects are really powerful. And if we lend ourselves to thinking about them, then we'll all gain wisdom. So, the thing about judgment, people, when we judge, then we are carrying some weight. You see, what we have to do is we have to first try to grasp what is meant by judge not, lest ye be judged. In this particular context, it means don't be judging your fellow men for things that you consider are not honourable or gracious or positive. They're not positive human attributes. Because first remove the rafter from your own eye before you pick up the straw in another man's. And let he who has no sin cast the first stone. You see, otherwise we end up being hypocrites, don't we? And nothing worse, well there's lots of things worse, but it's a pretty bad thing when you're a hypocrite, when you will cast judgment on others and then you will do similar reprehensible things. And so you stand on your ivory tower looking down at everybody else, chastising and belittling everyone else, and yet you do similar things. Well, Jesus despised the hypocrites, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So, in my book I speak about judgment in a broader essence of what it could be deemed to mean. And judgment could mean assessment. It could mean evaluation. It could mean estimating. It could mean lots of things like this. If I'm looking around here, I'm judging, I'm evaluating, I'm assessing, I'm gathering information, I'm in receipt of information. We need information, so we need to have a certain judgment of our surrounding areas and the people that we mix with is a natural thing. But judging people in that particular essence, judge not lest ye be judged. That way, there's no real future in that level of judgment, because you carry some sort of haughtiness to yourselves and a division because you're not like those people. Well, maybe you're not today. Maybe you have been, and maybe you will be. So you need to be careful. If we start judging people about the things they are doing, and then circumstances change with us and we end up in a situation similar to theirs and we start doing what they did, well, we're going to be looking and feeling pretty despicable, aren't we? We are, to be honest with you people. So it's wise to always be cautious and have a level of wisdom that we don't know what's around the corner. We don't know what circumstances we are going to end up in. We don't know what's going to befall us. And we don't know how low we are going to stoop when certain things change, when we become more primal. What level and degree of things will we be prepared to do if we had no money, no accommodation, no friends, no family? If we were in a situation whereby we didn't know anyone and we were very wanton, well, we might start stealing, we might start lying, we might start deceiving, we might start doing a lot of things, people. So my suggestion is always be open to that. What other people are doing, you've doubtless done it before yourselves, and there's a possibility that you may be doing that stuff again when circumstances change. Now, in relation to the kingdom of God is within us all, as I said in the previous video, that's paramount for me, what Jesus said. And to be honest, I have listened to a lot of spiritual gurus, and I've never heard that said from many of them, because most spiritual gurus that we listen to these days of bygone days were Indian people coming from far-flung places that weren't Christian. They probably never even heard of Christ and Christianity, and they had a certain notion and concept about how to do the right thing, because if we didn't do the right thing, do unto others what you want others to do unto you. If we don't do this, it doesn't fare well for us, does it? Eventually it's not going to fare well for us. So again, great wisdom, but Jesus wasn't the first to work that one out. But from what I can gather, he was the first to say that the kingdom of God is within you all, because he was versed in the Old Testament with the book of Yahweh and the notion of the Jewish God. And so, because he'd read those scriptures and others, Christian scholars, Jesus scholars, say without a doubt Jesus was familiar with Buddhism, because lots of the things he said were tenets of Buddhism. And okay, you could say that, well, you know, lots of people have thought similar things all over the world, maybe. But then there is this thing where Jesus, there's no record of him from 12 years old to 28 years old or 30 years old, something like that. Where did he go? Some people speculate he went to India, and some people speculate he was studying with the Essenes, another variety of religious sect, the Gnostics, lots of people. But for sure, he had knowledge of meditation, of Eastern ideology, and lots of other spiritual scriptures and ideologies. So the kingdom of God is within you all. Well, you see, at this moment in time, there's supposedly this Christian revitalization because people are getting afraid. They're afraid of the Zionists. They're afraid of the Islamists. They're afraid of their cultural heritage being stolen from them. And it's curious really, because for a couple of 100, 300 years since the Enlightenment, increasingly people haven't really respected the culture that they were born into, that of Christianity. And they never went to church, they never read the Bible, and they wouldn't know the first thing about Christianity. But now, when the shit is almost hitting the fan, people are starting to cling to something. Isn't that the case? Always the case, isn't it? Everyone's been just greedily grabbing whatever they could from this material world. And then, when it looks like the ground beneath their feet is going to be painted a different colour, the carpet from under their feet is going to be pulled out from under them. They're going to be displaced. They're going to be marginalised. They're going to be deeply compromised. And the very essence and heritage of what it is to be like a British subject is going to be taken away if the nation in itself isn't very, very careful. And if it's prepared to fight, because there's going to be a fight, people. There's no doubt about that. And there's lots of powers which are highly intent on destroying any national heritage, any roots, any deep foundations and relationship with this country and other countries. There's powers on the earth which want to take all that away. They don't want any cultural differences, they don't want any religious differences. They want complete and utter subservience and one belief, one religion. What is that religion? A very tiny little wren. Now then, is that a nest in there? Doesn't appear to be. Probably up there, but I'm not going to be going. But you know, when you're just hanging around and you'll see these things, and you'll see birds to and froing, because after a while they get used to you, and if they're feeding chicks, they can't wait all day, and they are going to be feeding chicks these days. So yes, changes are afoot, people. Changes are afoot. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because lots of people, they're starting to pray to Jesus and read the scriptures and look up into the sky and try to have some sort of relationship with something that they don't comprehend, they've never shown an interest in before. And if you ask me, it's absolutely futile. And it isn't the way forward. Nobody is going to get any strength out of that, because I'm telling you now, people, unless you have been deeply rooted in your religion, you won't believe yourselves. You just won't. And when the shit hits the fan, you won't have that rock to depend on. Now, where Christians are going to be failing very, very greatly is that the Islamists, they have been born into a deep level of indoctrination, a deep belief, and they absolutely believe to their core, and they are prepared to die because that's what is asked of them in their book. And so when you're dealing with a nemesis of such magnitude, unless you are prepared to adopt very, very similar policy, you ain't gonna fare very well. And so this is what's happening, because these people, they absolutely have an agenda. They absolutely want to take over. They absolutely want to bring the whole country under Sharia law. And they are not going to stop until they've done this. They're like the Terminator. And the only thing that's going to be preventing them is that thing that was going on for 300 years, called the Crusades. The same thing's been going on forever, people. And so now it's come to our door, whereas before we always used to take it to their door. We used to go down to their neck of the woods. We used to travel thousands of miles from Britain down to Jerusalem, gathering up soldiers on the way to take back that tiny little piece of land. 300 years that went on for. And so, anyway, now, what I'm saying here, this is the crux of it. And the interesting thing about my videos is that very few people will get to the end, which is great, in that only those who are worthy actually get to the end and get the gems. Because if people come onto the video and click, 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 click through and just want, the answers to the universe in 2 seconds, well, they won't be here for the ending. And even if they were here for the ending, they never have the preamble, so they've not got context. My videos aren't like 5 ways to do X, Y, and Z. No, because life doesn't work like that. Life just doesn't work like that. You may think it does, and it may get millions of clicks on videos, but you won't get anything. You won't benefit from the stuff because you have to have the foundation. Of course you do. Now, it's when people, they start making these videos. I was watching a little bit of one, as much as I could stomach. It was about the biggest YouTuber on the planet, and he was asked, if you could give us, 3 things what YouTubers should do to build a great platform. And he's kind of like, he had to go away and think about it. He had to go away and think about it, right? And then he came back with some sort of illustration on the board, and it's kind of like 3 circles, and they kind of like overlap each other, and there's a centre bit, and you've got to have consistency, and you've got to have a good quality product, and you've got to better your last video every single time. How nonsensical. Absolute rubbish. How can you better every single video? In what way? How? What do you get? You talk more faster, you talk more big, and you talk with more power. I mean, how do you make every video better than the last? By doing more pows and more zaps? Is that how you do it? Preposterous. Absolutely ridiculous. This is where most of the world is, people. And that's why the world is going to fall, because there's no substance. There's no substance to anyone. There's substance. Look, you don't need those sort of videos for people who know how to make long-lasting videos with a channel of substance, because they've already done it. And how do you get the information? You get the information by your own personal knowledge, by working things out yourself. Because if someone just tells you 3 ways to be a megastar in YouTube, well, you ain't got the background. You don't know shit. And it's like 3 ways to be a master bricklayer without doing an apprenticeship. No, you've got to do your apprenticeship, haven't you? But this shit sells to the idiot. And so what I'm selling, people, is something very, very different. I'm selling the opportunity for you to ask yourself what wisdom you possess, what knowledge you possess, what experience you possess. And then when you look at that, you shuffle it, you rearrange it, you assess it, you put it into categories and you make it nice and organized, then you'll have a foundation which you can call upon. And then, for instance, if you were a general in an army, if you had been a foot soldier for many years and you worked your way up, which incidentally very, very few people ever have, these generals, they come from aristocracy and they are placed. They go to university, they go to training camps and they learn the maneuvers and this, that and the other, and that's what they do. But they've learned the strategy of war from textbooks and from studying other battles and things like that. But if you were someone like Julius Caesar, who had been in hundreds and hundreds, thousands of battles, then you would be a fantastic general, and that's why he was. He was absolutely incredible because he was a time-served soldier. And if you're time-served anything, then you have authority and you can speak about how to do this, that and the other. But if you are just going to start, if Julius Caesar made a video today, 10 ways how to be a top general, really? How's that going to work? It ain't going to work, is it? It ain't going to work, people. So, what you're going to need, if you're going to be of any substance, if you are going to have any strength, if you're going to have any staying power, what you're going to need is a deep-rooted self-confidence. You're going to need to have such fast roots clinging to what you believe in every cell of your body, because those that the spiritual war is going to be fighting, that's what they have. That's what they have, people. And if you can't match that, you're fucked. You're fucked. So I'm speaking on one facet about the revamping of Christianity, of people starting to read the Bible and going to church. I mean, there's a guy I know, he's kind of like, well, I've just started to go to church. He was influenced by Tommy Robinson. Oh, I've started to go to church. Well, you got to, ain't you? Well, why have you got to? What? And then when he went there, all he was talking about is Trump and politics. And I'm like, well, that's the state of these stupid religions these days. It's all political machinations. And you ain't learning anything of any substance from going to church these days, because the pastors, they're only just talking bullshit about this and that and the other, just to people please and just to sound important and knowledgeable, this and the other. But the root of what you really need to know, it's coming from your ancestry, people. It's coming from your deep ancestry. It's going to come from the very essence of what you are, what your nation is. And that's where your power is going to come from. And if you don't have that power because you're not a national originally and you never really felt nationalistic and you were just grabbing, you don't even know your history, you don't know anything about the history of your own country and all that sort of stuff, then the battle's lost already. And so this is why I don't have a lot of hope for what's happening in London on May the 16th, I believe it is. Anyway, to finalise this video, in the main facet of what I want to speak about is the kingdom of God within us. Now, potentially, potentially, we all have the kingdom of God within us. Why? Well, because we're all conscious and we're all human beings, and it's conscious human beings that talk about the kingdom of God and use metaphors like that and create gods and everything like that. So you would have thought that the concept of the kingdom of God is within us could be sought out by all of us. But I'm telling you now, my experience has been very, very long and arduous, and the kingdom of God, entering into the kingdom of God, took many, many years. And I can pretty assuredly say now that unless you've done the work, you ain't finding that kingdom of God. You ain't finding the real kingdom of God. And the kingdom of God is what I'm always speaking about. It's that feeling, it's that aura, it's that essence, it's that state of consciousness, it's that state of stillness and bliss and oneness and pure knowing. That's the kingdom of God, people. And then when you have a relationship with the kingdom of God, you are the kingdom of God, then you walk around this earth as a very different person, as a very, very different person. And so someone said to me in the comments, how do you eradicate your hate and your fears? And I'm like, well, that comes naturally when you have the deepest self-realization that you're not the ego. But as long as you don't know that you're not the ego, as long as you are still firmly encompassed and trapped within the ego, you ain't never going to get out of the facets of hate and all the rest of those negative human attributes which pertain to the one-sidedness of the human being, which is the human operating system called the ego. Unless you bring balance in your life, unless you have a relationship with higher self, with spirit, a real true relationship. I'm not talking about praying, I'm not talking about going and sitting in one of those silly pews in these churches. I'm talking about when you really, really know it because you've experienced it. How have you experienced it? You have experienced it through the deepest of trauma, through the deepest of shocking of revelations, through entheogens or deep meditation or supernatural experiences. When you've had all that sort of stuff, then you know what it is. And so this is why I'm not getting any traction on the things I'm saying and speaking at this level and depth. And the reason's simple, because only a very, very few. Only a very, very few. And like it says in the Bible, when the end times come, there's going to be 144,000 who are risen. Well, 144,000 is 1 plus 4 plus 4 equals 9. That's the number for consciousness. So only those with a high state of consciousness are going to be risen, or they will have rose themselves. So they're already going to be risen. Their state of consciousness already is number 9. 1 plus 4 plus 4, 144. You see? So it's all hidden code, it's all metaphor. But if you raise your consciousness, then you enter into the kingdom of God. There's no reaping and there's no burning of the chaff and all this nonsense. No, you enter into the kingdom of God here on earth. And maybe you take that revelation and knowledge with you when you pass on from this dimension. Lots of people seem to think you do. Lots of spirits seem to retain the knowledge and the lessons they learned. I don't know about that. But what I know is that this kingdom of God is something that you got to earn. And I can honestly say that I never sought it out. I was never, I'm going to find the kingdom of God, or pray, 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 please, 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 let me find the kingdom of God. It just happened. It just happened to me because it was destined to be that way. And so I can't tell you how to get it, I can't give it to you. I can just speak to you about it. And if you can feel it within yourselves, then you can maybe nurture it a little bit and give it more energy and concentrate on the higher facet of what you are rather than on the lower, which is all the things you don't like about the world and all the things you want to get and all that, all the stuff premised in ego. So when you are still and calm, beautified, grateful, and in a state of bliss, that's when you're in the kingdom of God, people.